Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Waters, along with Dan Bongino, Marie Harf, Kennedy, and Greg. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Fox News alert. President Trump raising the stakes in the standoff over building the border wall during day 13 of the government shutdown. The president appearing in the White House press briefing room surrounded by immigration and law enforcement officials to say he's not backing down.
We need protection in our country. We're going to make it good. The people of our country want it. I have never had so much support as I have in the last week over my stance for border security, for border control, and for, frankly, the wall or the barrier. I have never had anything like it in terms of calls coming in terms of people writing in and tweeting and doing whatever they have to do. I've never had this much support.
Those same officials supporting the president's call for more border security.
Anywhere that you look where we have built walls, they have worked. They have been an absolute necessity for Border Patrol agents in securing the border.
You all got to ask yourself this question. If I come to your home, do you want me to knock on the front door or do you want me to climb through that window?
These criminal aliens that have been released from jail, that have been deported, will come right back into the United States. However, if we had a physical barrier, if we had a wall, we won't be able to stop that.
This stalemate over money for the border wall set to intensify with Democrats retaking control of the House. Nancy Pelosi is promising to put pressure on President Trump and Republicans after reclaiming the gavel and the speakership just hours ago. Pelosi is also insisting she's not budging on coughing up money for the wall.
Are you willing to come up and give him some of this money for the wall? Because apparently that's the sticking point.
No, nothing for the wall. We're talking about border security. There is no amount of persuasion he can do to say to us, we want you to do something that is not effective, that costs billions of dollars.
All this comes as President Trump invites congressional leaders back to the White House tomorrow for more shutdown talks after a contentious briefing on border security yesterday. All right, so Dan, on a day when all the attention was on Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, big ceremony and all the nightly newscasts, we're going to lead with that. The president comes in at the end of the day and holds this big press briefing surrounded by ICE agents and Border Patrol agents and kind of stole her thunder a little bit. Yep. I thought that was pretty effective. Did you?
It is. I think the GOP's generally had a problem over the last few decades, not with the message, but with messaging. I mean, the general idea of low taxes, border security, health care, freedom and choice resonates with the majority of Americans. The problem is our messaging is terrible. We never manage to fit things on a Wheaties box. In other words, everything, we go to like a methadone clinic and we're talking about 401ks and the Laffer curve. We've never been able to say it as easily as Trump. This is about border security. That's his message right now. It's clear. He's a master at taking over the microphone, and he just did it again in this press conference. I think it was a brilliant idea. Come out, be snappy, get off the stage.
And it's a nice response to Speaker Pelosi, who's been saying for almost a year, walls don't work. And you have people on the border, experts, who've done this their whole lives, saying everywhere we've put a barrier, they've stopped illegal immigration.
And you have other experts who say we don't need the kind of wall that Donald Trump's talking about. We need something in the middle.
Who's that?
So there's a whole list of them.
Can you name more?
Will Hurd, who is a former CIA officer, congressman from Texas,
CIA
on the border.
guy?
On the border.
I trust these guys because they're down there on the front lines.
He is a Republican member of Congress from Texas who says it's the most costly, least effective way to do border security. So there is a difference of opinion.
I don't believe that at all.
Okay, well, it's true.
And the CIA, don't come after me.
But here's what, so Donald Trump didn't hold a press conference. He didn't take any questions. So I thought
that was smart because sometimes he takes questions and then he steps on the message.
That's true. So two points, though, on this. First, you've had the first Republican senator today, Cory Gardner from Colorado, come out and say the government should reopen with no wall funding. There are senators on the Republican side who are vulnerable here who may decide that they will vote for something the House passes with no wall funding. This is a numbers game for the president at this point. The other point I would make is that a lot of people in cable punditry, including myself, have started talking about this DACA for wall funding swap. My question is that even being talked about inside the negotiating room? Because you don't hear about it from Trump or the White House. You don't hear about it from Pelosi. They're each sort of in their own corners. We're all talking about a possible compromise here, but are they?
Well, we know something
right? They
that
should be
was happening inside the negotiating room the other day. I think Kirstjen Nielsen, Department of Homeland Security Secretary, started talking about the facts and figures on the border, and Chuck and Nancy just cut her off.
Yeah.
I thought that was really mean.
Yeah, according to one White House source, Chuck leaned in and answered, "You should interrupt her."
Right.
And because she was presenting data and facts, and she was presenting her case, and then Speaker Pelosi comes out and says the president is allergic to data and facts.
True.
So, clearly this is an allergy or an affliction that is spreading to both parties, and that's why we're at an impasse. I also don't hear Nancy Pelosi talking about what the House can do in terms of immigration, because everyone is hung up on the wall. They're hung up on that four-letter word, and they can't get past it. Meanwhile, you have a bunch of people who aren't collecting paychecks, others who aren't going to work, and those who are caught in the middle trying to work in this country. But by some, they are being demonized. And my question for Dan is, what if the wall doesn't work? Because really, the greatest correlation between immigration in this country and when it proliferates is when the economy is doing really well. Right now, the economy is doing really well. You also have a lot of illegal immigration.
Yeah, but you generally believe in facts and data, right? How do you explain the fact
so much.
that there is a significant correlation between construction of walls and the decreasing in illegal immigration traffic and drug trafficking, where there in fact is a wall in place? How would you explain that? Any other way?
And the president actually just went to Instagram and I think released a meme. The wall is coming.
Oh,
is that real?
my God.
That is from Game of Thrones.
Nice.
This is embarrassing.
That's fresh on the gram. Let's go to Greg for the big picture. Greg, I know you've been watching this all day.
And that is a big picture. That is a big picture. I look at it from as part of the media, we are living in Donald Trump's restaurant, right? Because around 4:30, he says, there's not enough Trump on your pizza. There's not enough Trump in your soup. So he leaves the kitchen and he comes out and puts more Trump on your plate, which is what he did at 4:30, which helps galvanize the media, and then everybody reacts, responds. But here's what I want to think about. The real threat to security is a rhetorical device, conflation. Okay, if you think about the four areas of security: border, terror, crime, and let's say home protection, guns. Okay, those are the four areas. In each one of those cases, there's the device that is used to prevent any kind of improvements in that area is conflation. If you look at immigration, conflate illegal immigration with legal immigration, you can't get a wall. With terror, if you conflate religion with extremism, you get Islamophobia. That prevents any movement in the anti-terror world. If you look at policing, you conflate law and order with racism, right? Police brutality, police shootings. And then when you look at the Second Amendment, you conflate gun crime with actually gun ownership. So this is a tactic used by the left that is effective in every area of security. And it's probably most glaring here because we see that they both agree on the same thing. They both want border protection, but one won't budge because they're conflating it with bigotry. It's like, oh, you want a wall? You don't like brown people. That's what it is. You don't like the people from down. It's like no, actually, if you ask Hispanics here, they would actually agree that they believe in security too. But that conflation is what is destroying every debate. That's my big picture.
You say, though, that the Democrats and the Republicans agree they both want border security. I'm not so sure the Democrats want 100%.
Okay. We have proof. We have them saying it.
That's
just because they say it doesn't make it true.
That's my question, and I want someone to pose that to Chuck Schumer. Why was that okay in 2006, but it's not okay now? Why were you okay designating $46 billion for the kind of border security that everyone is talking about 12 or 13 years ago now, but you're not okay with what has changed?
Well, if you're a reporter on Capitol Hill, take that question from Kennedy and then ask crying Chuck Schumer. Maybe we can get an answer, and then we can find out the truth. But we got to run, all right?
I was just going to say, what has changed from the Senate bill that passed 100-0 under the last Congress that had no wall funding?
Caravans and people throwing rocks at border agents. President Trump standing firm on his wall call for a border wall. More on his surprise press briefing up next.
Trump is the wall.
Stand up for
President Trump appearing in the White House briefing room to tell Democrats he's not backing down this fight over building a border wall. He even just posted this meme on Instagram saying, quote, "The wall is coming." I love it. The president's new push for increased border security comes as California is coming under fire for its sanctuary laws. The illegal immigrant with a criminal record accused of killing a California police officer last week has now been charged with murder. And the county sheriff and police chief in charge of the investigation of blasting laws preventing that suspect from being deported to Mexico before slaying Officer Ron Singh.
Why are we allowing criminal illegal aliens into this country, and why is there any political interference in the first place in our ability to protect our communities and to have a communication or at least work with ICE?
You couldn't script it any more political. You have a legal immigrant and an illegal immigrant that we're talking about. But I want everyone to remember the family, what this man came here to do.
You know, Jesse, you see that picture of Officer Singh with his beautiful wife and child, and it's tough. It's tough to take, especially, having been a former cop myself and having lost people in the precinct. It was real. You stood next to these guys, and then one day you show up for work, and they're just not there. I mean, it's literally over, and you can't get out of your head, like, this child will never have their father again. But what I can't get out of my head is, listen, on sanctuary city laws, yes, I get it. The illegal immigrants that come to this country who broke the law, many of them will not go on to commit other crimes. Point stipulated.
Right.
But 100% did break the law and should not have been here. And if we effectively secured our border, this child would have their father again.
That's true. And he came here from Mexico, was busted twice for DUI, didn't have any ID, didn't have any insurance. He had gang affiliations. He had multiple aliases. And in Madera County, they had kind of an unspoken sanctuary policy. ICE was never contacted because these weren't felonies. These were only misdemeanors. So when something like this happens, it's heart-wrenching. And there's not the outpouring of emotion when an American police officer is killed by an illegal alien criminal. But there's this huge outpouring of emotion when a woman, a migrant in the caravan is tear-gassed. Now, one is dead and the other is tear-gassed. And this country focuses on this woman at the border with her kid, and she's held out to be this big hero, and an actual hero right now is now dead. So the reason these sanctuary cities policies continue to happen is because these open borders politicians are protected by the open borders media. They should have reporters knocking down the door of the governor of California asking for accountability. They should have people out on the streets saying, why is this happening? Instead, this guy's not on the cover of Time magazine. Yeah. The mother with the daughter is on Time magazine. So as long as they're not held accountable for this, they feel emboldened, and these dangerous policies are allowed to continue.
Greg, what's always irked me about this as well is, regarding sanctuary city laws, when you have this debate with Democrats and liberals, you ask them, well, what other laws in the United States are we not obligated to follow? Like, I hate Obamacare. It sucks. I mean, it's destroyed my health care, doubled my premiums. Do I get to ignore that? And the words, no, Obamacare's the law of the land. You don't like the immigration laws, vote people into office and change them. But this debate never made sense to me. It's like, where else? It's so unprincipled by Democrats to not just try to change it legislatively and say, hey, just ignore it. We're not going to abide by it.
I want a sanctuary city where you don't have to wear pants, but it's not going to happen. Not here in America. Yeah,
I would file a suit against that.
I think so too. A suit with no pants. But this is a great lesson, or a sad lesson, or a tragic lesson in the dangers of value-free virtue signaling. The sanctuary city is a virtue signal for politicians and the media, in which the victim isn't them. It's always somebody else. So they can proclaim how great a sanctuary city is, because it doesn't really affect them. They're not on the front lines knocking on doors like a police officer is, who has to pay the price. And if you bring up the stat, and I think a lot of people do bring the stat, that rates of crime are higher among citizens than illegal immigrants, and I would be inclined to believe that because I go back and forth.
Yeah.
But I've said this before, heart disease kills more than cancer, but people still die from cancer. We can handle both kinds of threats. So you can say, this is why the argument fails. You can say, oh, citizens commit more crime. Well, the citizen didn't kill that police officer. So we should be focusing on that primarily. The rage is legitimate because that was totally preventable.
Right.
It was preventable because there is a system in place that allowed for it to happen that shouldn't have been there, sanctuary cities.
So the sanctuary city laws, though, legally, I mean, the Trump administration has tried to take federal funding away from the cities with these laws. That is still working its way through the legal system. There are legal questions about these laws, and hopefully the judicial system will work some of this out, right? But, Jesse, I said this last week because I think someone else brought up a similar point. The fact that Congress has failed to fix our immigration system has led to so many tragedies. It's led to this police officer. It's led to Kate Steinle. It's led to the kids who come here and die in CPB custody of diseases they did not have when they did not show signs of when they went into custody.
But both parents admit they used them in order to get here, and in custody meant they were in a hospital trying to be saved by Americans.
Because we have a broken immigration system, right?
Well, they were they got an incentive, though, Marie. They were incentivized.
But because Congress has failed to fix this system, they have not done their job. There are tragedies at so many levels. There are human tragedies. It's a humanitarian crisis at the border, and Congress needs to reopen the government, however they can figure out how to do that, and then tackle this problem, because these tragedies keep happening. The fact that people are willing to come to the United States to cross in very difficult, dangerous situations to present themselves because they want a better life here, but they don't feel like there's a system to do that. This has created tragedies on many, many levels.
They're incentivized. I mean, the parents were both made to believe that this would help them if they brought their child. And we have activists in the media who basically encourage the caravan.
But Greg, legally it does, though. You can.
Why are these crimes always discussed, though, in terms of the impact on the illegal immigrant, not the actual victims? Like, no one else, if you're burglarizing your house, everybody's worried about the victim, not the guy who committed the crime. Why is illegal immigration always discussed in terms of how it affects the people here illegally and not the victims of it?
Well, and if you talk to some in law enforcement, they will say, we can't demonize immigrant communities because we need their help in solving crimes. Absolutely. And at the LAPD, they have Special Order 40, and there were people who were activists against illegal immigration who were appealing to LAPD to get rid of that, but they say it really helps us solve crimes.
But is it demonizing, though, to call them out for breaking the law?
Well, I guess the worry is that if you say that law enforcement has to report to ICE anyone who is here illegally, even for misdemeanors, then their worry is that law enforcement is now going to target immigrant communities and arrest people for petty crimes and then deport them, or at least hand them over to ICE. But the problem, this is the problem I see at the table. Everyone here is laying out the case why government has failed over and over and over again. Whether it's there's not enough security at the border, to there's too much chaos and people are dying. So the solution from everyone, from different angles, is to throw more government at bad government. And that is something I just don't understand.
Well, I agree with you there. All right, we got to run. It's a brand new year, but the left is unleashing the same unhinged attacks against President Trump. Don't miss it. See him next.
Well, hello and welcome back. The far left is kicking off a new year with the same old rhetoric. We're only 3 days into 2019, and here are some of the most outrageous attacks on Republicans and President Trump. Watch.
My New Year's resolution is to make sure that the Republican Party dies.
Americans elected an authoritarian, anti-immigrant, racist strongman to the nation's highest office. Much like Hitler took over the Nazi Party, Trump has taken over the Republican Party.
The lying continues, and that his base apparently still doesn't care. He lies right to their faces.
Interesting. So did Bob Iger have to apologize to Disney shareholders for Joy Behar or for President Trump?
Well, I won't ever speak ill of Joy because I appear on The View to promote my book. I want to have everything go copacetic.
What is your book called?
Rising Waters?
Yes.
Isn't that your idea?
Yes.
That's right. Coming to a store near you sometime.
Have you written this book?
No, we're looking for a ghostwriter.
You can pre-order, though, on Amazon.
That's true.
For 2023.
What I would say, this is a great example of media bias, because if someone had come on Fox News and said the Democratic Party should die, goodbye. Or
somebody has, I'm sure.
People say crazy things.
Probably on my show.
There's some people you don't see who used to be pretty regular contributors around.
Well, that's why you don't see him anymore. Yeah. And I also have to say something about Hank Johnson. So he's managed to combine a Hitler gaffe with a deplorable gaffe, because if you go on and listen to what he says, he calls all of Trump voters old, alcoholic racists, and that's about 60 million of them. This guy also believed that, what was the island that he thought was going to tip over and capsize because of overpopulation?
Did you see the general when he said that at the briefing? The guy's like, no, sir, I don't think that's going to happen, trying to play it straight.
Yeah, not the smartest guy.
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I mean, you know, it's grist for the mill, and it just goes to show that people are still spouting bitter, vague platitudes, and they're upset about the election that they should focus on undoing. Focus on getting a good candidate and a good message, not just, the Republican Party should die. I live in a bubble.
Jane
Smells like off cheese.
Jane Curtin doesn't represent the Democratic Party. She doesn't represent.
She does?
No, she does.
Yeah,
I
she
literally
does.
have not heard of her in a decade. Like, we're reaching pretty hard here if it's like, okay, Joy Behar said something, okay, we do that, every couple of weeks. And Jane Curtin, like, really, that doesn't matter at all, right? This congressman...
Are you accusing us of cherry picking?
Yes.
What about Hank Johnson?
Case closed.
Yes,
What about,
I am.
Okay, first of all, I want to talk about
congressman?
Hank Johnson, because Hank Johnson is saying that the president is so bad. He's like Hitler. So somehow using foul language and coarse expletives and some weird language on Twitter is the same thing as exterminating 6 million Jews. I have a really hard time with that comparison. And also, Hank Johnson also compared Jews in Israel to termites. So apparently he was giving Donald Trump a compliment by violating Godwin's law.
Yeah, I don't like what he said. I don't like the Hitler references. I think that goes way too far. And I don't know that congressman. I didn't hear the Guam thing, but he shouldn't have said it, right? I do think, though, that politics today, on both sides, I'm going to do that, people say crazy things. Like we were joking at the beginning. If a Democrat said, or if a Republican said that about the Democratic Party, the things that were said about Barack Obama, about Michelle Obama, about...
Was Barack Obama ever compared to Hitler by a sitting member of Congress?
He was said...
Was he compared to Adolf Hitler?
The current president questioned whether he was actually born in America. The things that were said about Michelle Obama...
He was a private citizen.
Are you really comparing birtherism to calling someone Hitler?
I'm not...
Is that a direct comparison? Because that's pretty weak for
Kennedy,
you, Marie. You're smarter
I'm
than
not
that. You're better than that.
I'm not making a direct comparison, but I'm saying there were terrible, awful, racist, sexist things said about Michelle Obama, about Barack Obama.
Not by sitting members of Congress.
Oh, really? Really? Do you want me to find some of the things that people like Joe Wilson said about? Are you?
Well, he said
kidding
you
me?
lie.
He said you lie.
He didn't say you're a Nazi.
He didn't say Steve King. Have you heard things Steve King said in Iowa?
Well, that's Greg.
Yeah, they're really racist and awful. So
well,
let's just call everyone out on both sides.
Okay, I am going to agree with everybody here.
Oh!
Yes. Okay, so Maria is making an interesting point, because the better state that America gets in terms of increased prosperity and lower incidence of violence, the more frustrated the critics who are out of power become. So right now, we're living in a peaceful, prosperous state, and it's causing people like Joy Behar to become more irrational, and Hank Johnson to become more irrational, if that's indeed possible. And I do believe that there were times when, I'm going to say it, there were people irrational about Barack Obama. Now, I disagree with everything that Barack Obama did, maybe 98%. But, you know, I don't think he was evil. And I know that people can say, how dare you say that? I think that you got to hand it to Trump for making a lot of irrelevant comedians feel important again. I mean, they had to go very far to find Jane Curtin. I mean, that's an R-list comedian. I mean, they're exhausting it. But my piece of advice for the Democrats is what I said when I was doing Red Eye during the Obama thing, was to be positive and fun about what you're doing. Have a good time. Enjoy what... If you're out of power, you can still find... And I'm going to bring up somebody I know. I think AOC is a positive force for the Democratic Party, because when I look at her, I see a positive person.
I'm sure you do.
I do!
Listen, I'm going to take a different
Ruby red
approach to
lips.
this. Totally. The gift of Donald Trump has been the ability to get the Democrats to show their butts, right? This is who they are. The Democrats are really an angry lot. They want to take your money, your health care, take away your kids' education. And where in the past, it's absolutely true.
It's actually not, Sam.
That is absolutely... They don't want more of our money. Everything I just said is true. You know it's true.
You know what? Just take it.
They deny it.
Take the money.
Trump, he gets them to show their butts. He does. And in the past, whereas Republicans would have backed down to these attacks with the media pressure, Trump doubles down.
I agree with him, too, in that part.
Greg, they venture into hysteria.
I agree with everyone.
In politics, you just mentioned Godwin's law. What's the ultimate form of hysteria? comparisons to unique stains in human history: slavery, the Holocaust, and Nazism. And that's where the Democrats go consistently out there. And it's because Trump will not back down. It's the gift of Donald Trump. He refuses to back down.
Very uncreative. Nancy Pelosi trying to play the sexism card against President Trump in a new barrage of attacks. We've got that next.
In an interview with NBC News, Nancy Pelosi was asked whether
the Speaker of the House. And that doesn't matter whether you're a woman or not. But I hope he recognizes that a new day has dawned in America.
So who knows if Trump deals with her differently because she's a lady? The real question is, does she treat Trump differently because he's a man?
You reportedly came back, spoke to some members of your caucus, other Democrats, and said the wall, it seems like it might be a manhood thing. It might be about his manhood. That's a statement that's capable of interpretation. Care to explain what you meant?
Well, I wish that my members had not repeated that outside the room.
I bet she does. But no matter, the real story is what passes as news these days. You know what the news is? It's a bitter smoothie made of watered-down old news thrown into an idiot blender. In this era of good times, brought to you by Peace and Prosperity, the media must keep making crazy crap up. In the old days, the news went like this. Something happened, here it is. Now it becomes, let's ask so-and-so a question that gets an opinion that we can fashion into something that feels like facts, since we have no new facts regarding the original story. So you end up with failed opinions that didn't measure up before, but feels like facts for viewers seeking validated assumptions because no real facts exist. So without new stuff on collusion, we now have opinions on collusion, then feelings about collusion, then feelings about opinions on collusion, which suddenly somehow becomes indictment.
Everything indicates that a president can be indicted after he is no longer president of the United States.
What about a sitting president?
Well, sitting president when he's no longer president of the United States.
A president who is in office. Right. Could Robert Mueller come back and say, I am seeking an indictment?
I think that is an open discussion.
Open discussion. So that's news. The stories we see today are no longer the four W's: who, what, where, or why. Under Trump, it's now just one W repeated over and over again: wine, wine, wine. You guys want to hear what Nancy's daughter had to say about Nancy?
Yeah.
Let's roll that tape. That's fun.
She'll cut your head off and you won't even know you're bleeding. That's all you need to know about her. No one ever won betting against Nancy Pelosi.
You know, I'm going to do that thing. Imagine if Ivanka Trump was on a show, I'd said that about Donald Trump. He'll cut your head off and you won't even know it's bleeding.
That's pretty medieval, man. That's like, talk about
but they all laughed. Right? CNN all laughed. They thought it was funny. Oh, she decapitates.
Like I could shoot someone in the middle of New York and still be elected? Like something like that?
Well, that was accurate.
Well, no,
fair point. Okay.
But on your opening, though, you know, facts don't matter anymore. We live in an opinion society where all opinions are given equal weight, even when those opinions are stupid and make no sense. You know, I just remember when I ran for office arguing with a Washington Post guy that the Reagan tax cuts had cost the government money. I said, here's the Treasury's website. The revenue, are you missing this? Do I have to email you the link? He still refused to debate it. We're seeing it now in the topics today.
Yeah.
The wall, you know, walls don't work. Okay, there's data on that. Where they built a wall, it worked.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work. Okay, well, are you like in a world, were you vaccinated against facts? Like, did you, at an early age, was there some facts vaccine we all missed?
Vaccinated.
The same thing about collusion. Like, she gives an opinion on collusion. Well, is there any actual evidence of that, or are we just going to keep talking about your opinion on actual collusion?
I feel like Kennedy, each story is one of those little Russian dolls, and we just keep adding another one.
Yes.
Yeah, the nesting dolls. So collusion then becomes somebody says something, then somebody reacts to that, reacts to that, and it's just like this solar system of opinion.
But the big question is, what's in the middle?
Right. Nougat. Creamy nougat.
God, I wish that would be so fantastic. But
Cadbury egg.
Is the smallest nesting doll, is that Mueller's report? And if so, are we ever going to see it? Because now it feels like he's going to hoard his nesting dolls.
Yes.
And that's the threat, that we're never really going to see which one fit inside the other, which then, you know, nestled inside the next.
Yes.
You're absolutely right about that, because the thing, when you don't have facts, and when you only have a society and discourse that's based on opinion, it's entirely subjective, and that way you never really get to the truth. And it's interesting because objectivity and the search for the truth is now being demonized.
That is so true. And but here's the reality, and I admit that it's part of our reality, Jesse. If Trump wasn't around, 87.3% of our stories would not exist.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be about Nancy Pelosi.
It would be about Hillary.
Can we go wide for a second? This is probably the scariest thing I've seen all day. Let's take, oh my God! Oh my God!
Yeah.
We're going to have to see that for the next 2 years.
Get it,
And so this is what the media is now doing. We're going to see Nancy catapulted up to the same
Speaker
level
Pelosi.
as President Trump. You're going to see her face all the time. When you see Trump's face, it's going to be Nancy, and they're going to create this big collision in the media. I don't think that's a good thing for Democrats. Nancy Pelosi is extremely unpopular. Trump loves contrasting himself with other people. He loves the fight. I think the media is leading the Democrats over the cliff on this stuff. You just saw her try to get her to play the gender card, Savannah. You tried to get her to say, oh, impeach, impeach, impeach. If the media does that to the Democratic Party, especially Nancy Pelosi, who's got a pretty fierce left wing breathing down her neck over the next 2 years, gender card, race card, impeachment, they're going to just drive them over the cliff.
Well, all of those things existed in the run-up to the midterms, and Democrats won 40 seats in the House with people knowing Nancy Pelosi would probably be Speaker. So people
I thought they campaigned on health care.
So people say, yes, but she was in every Republican ad, Jesse, you know this as well as I do, she was the foil Republicans were running against.
Then why did Democrats who ran against her do so well?
I think the Democrats got good candidates for their districts, and 15 of them did not vote for her today as Speaker, including a number of people who said they would not. So they found candidates that are not just liberals, are not just progressives like AOC. They fit their districts. We have a lot of moderates. She's going to have to bring them all together to govern.
Right, and those moderates are going to lose their seats if they go far left.
Well, and so they're not going to. So this is my point to you. Republicans say she's this big foil and she's so unpopular, and in some places she is. Democrats just won a historic victory in the House with the absolute idea that she would be Speaker. So I think people should not underestimate. I underestimated her, okay? I said on this program and others, she won't be Speaker if we take the House. I was wrong. I underestimated her strength and her power, and it would be stupid of all of us to keep doing that,
All right.
frankly.
We must
Not
leave,
historic.
must
Only
leave it
40.
there. I
That's
always like
sad.
saying that. We must leave it there.
We'll keep following it.
Okay, we'll keep following it. That's very good. Up next, a potentially dangerous new internet challenge
No.
inspired by the Netflix hit Bird Box.